Hi, it's Susan from Worldpeacefull, and I just wanted to share with you an experience I've just had where I actually met a homeless guy. I found him in the forest uh, under a tarpaulin, and I was just going for a walk, having a contemplate about the early release of superannuation for homeless people because I've been trying for 2 years to get $1,500 released under severe hardship because I don't have income and I don't have a home, and yet that's not recognised unless I am on Centrelink for 26 consecutive weeks. So that's your legalistic sort of disconnect between those who are actually in severe hardship for real, but who are not complying with the framework which says you are not entitled to anything unless you're on Centrelink. And that's something I've encountered over and over. And of course, I'm conscientiously objecting to the job provider system and the work for the dole and all the rest of it because I see it as not giving people what they really need, um, in respect of, if they're going for work, they're basically being told to take anything. Now, people might say, oh, well, you should take anything. Well, no, you need to be happy and you need to know who the employer is, and you would expect it too if you were going for a job. You just put yourself in the shoes of other people. There is also issues around the job provider system being more about corporate welfare rather than the needs of the actual people who are requiring an income support to survive. It's a whole different ball game. Not everybody can work. Some people are experiencing trauma. Some are suicidal. Some are having chronic fatigue. Some might not be able to prove their situation, but they need some income in order to survive. That's really what it's about. For those who are ripping off the system, well, what goes around comes around, I believe. And yes, there should be checks and balances there, of course, as part of fairness in public accountability. But the issue for me is the right to say no in a democratic system was really largely why I conscientiously objected. So I'm only really giving that bit of a preamble because I'm looking at superannuation and I'm in touch with a regulator now, and I'm still being quoted legislation. So I'm contemplating how I can break through the reality of homelessness to these lawyers who have no concept and these politicians who have never been homeless, and for the general public who haven't been homeless. They have no clue of the reality on the ground when you've got nowhere to go, or you don't have the means to rent a house. You don't have the money. And when you're in an economic system like this, people get judged severely. I'm not a fire victim. I'm economic hardship. That's a whole different ball game. I've found people aren't sympathetic, and if anything, they just see you as free riding. They don't know that you actually don't have money, and it's not quite as simple as just getting on Centrelink. If you're a person of conscience, if you've been educated and you understand the importance of rights, these are the things that democracy was apparently fought for. These things are incredibly important for mental health. They're incredibly important for self-determination, for the right to say no to things you don't think are in your interests. It's freedoms. And unless you lose your freedoms, you really have no clue what you're losing. So I'm just sort of saying that because I was thinking about homelessness, and I went for a little walk in the bush, and I was just enjoying, touching the trees and just connecting with nature and looking at the river. It was really beautiful. And I just happened to walk up a pathway I've never walked up before, and I saw a shelter. And I thought, no, he's not camping. I think he lives here. It was a guy. Pardon me. And I said, oh, hello. I said, oh, are you homeless? I said, I am too. I said, I know I don't look it, but I am. And I sat on the ground next to him, and we started to have a talk, and he had the most beautiful skin. And I said, oh, yeah, I'm starting Homeless Lives Matter, actually. And I said, I want to give a voice to people who are homeless, people without homes. It's not who we are, it's just the way it is. You don't have a home. And yet we're called and labelled homeless. It's very interesting. Anyway, this very lovely man sitting under this tarpaulin with only very minimal things, And he was very lovely. He let me sit on one of his little chairs, his little tent chairs. And we just had this really lovely discussion. Told him I'd been homeless 2 years. And I said, I'm sort of house sitting and staying at friends in between. And I said, I don't have any income. I said, my mother did give me $35 a week for a year, which was actually very generous of her. And, I'm grateful for that because it enabled me to survive. And I had to stay in integrity with Centrelink. I couldn't go on if I felt it was not right. Ethically, I had to say no. Otherwise, if there was no ethical issue, I would have definitely gone back on. But I have to be free to be able to say yes or no to something that's in my interests or not in my interests. I've worked in 400 companies, so it's not like I need the skills in work for the dollar, don't. And the jobs they were getting me to apply for were beneath my skill set, which means I'm not going to get the job because they'll see me as overqualified. So there were issues of recruiters not really having skills in getting jobs. So what's the point? I'm not here to make them money. I'm not going to waste taxpayers' dollars, in a job provider system that's not getting me work. It's not working clearly for me. And of course, there were more and more penalties, so it felt more like a police state. And I'm not a criminal. I'm just a person who doesn't have work. I work, as I said to this guy, I said, I actually work 7 days a week, but I'm working on, what's going on in the world, issues to do with homelessness. I'm learning. So I'm always motivated every day. So anyway, we had this chat and he was really, really lovely. He had beautiful skin. I noticed really shiny skin, and he was my age. He was 55. And what was really beautiful is when I look at him, I see equal. I don't go, oh, poor homeless person, because we're both equal. I'm in the same situation, but not living rough like he is. And I really admire the ones who can live rough. And he had mental health. He wasn't, in trauma. And I doubt, in fact, I'm certain 100% he certainly wasn't having any addictions. And I said to him, how long have you been homeless? He said, 7 years. I went, really? That's a long time. And I said, how do you handle the heat and the cold? He goes, it's not easy. He said, but he adjusts. I said, oh, I guess you're adapting to it. And he said, well, I've been here a long time. And he said, people have been very respectful to me. So he's not been moved on. He's not given a hard time. He does have a few friends. I questioned him about the heavy rain we had the other night because it's a tarpaulin and he's just got it set up like it's above the ground, so the fresh air can come all the way through. It's not a tent where he doesn't, he can sort of block a little bit of the weather out. He can't. He said things got wet, and he sort of just was, okay. He was okay. So he's just allowing his situation. And I sort of talked about the positive side of homelessness, what I'm learning, and I'm learning to be a better person in the sense of being really happy with who I am, homeless or not, and not judging anyone. I really love that. And I said to him, I've learned a lot about the system itself and how if you're not on Centrelink, you can't access homeless services, the expense of hostels, 250 a week for a rooming house, which is just a room, which another homeless person said it was like a prison. And they share toilets and kitchen facilities. But she was begging on the street, this other woman, and said she'd made $7 and it was a really hot day. But she was making her point that the Judgement was pretty full on. Now, this guy I spoke to, he keeps to himself. He said, I used to be very talkative. He said towards the end of our conversation, which was for a few hours, he said, I normally don't talk to anyone. And he said, but if a person says hello to me, I'll say hello back. And we ended up, it was really a most amazing experience talking with him. And he was wise. Oh my God, the wisdom. he came out with all these wise sayings, you know. It's funny, I can't remember, but they came from the Bible as well. He's a Christian. And he thought I'd been influenced because I'm into unconditional love and forgiveness and compassion. And he believed my mother had influenced me because I told him my mum was Christian. I said, no, she actually hasn't. Although, when she married my stepfather, who's a very beautiful man, the Christianity became more sort of narrated or talked about because she was with him for about 25, 30 years. So naturally, I'm going to hear more about Christianity when I'm around them. When I grew up, I didn't have any Christian education, and there was no discussion because my father wasn't a Christian. And in a way, I'm really glad that happened because my own connection to that higher intelligence happened just through experience rather than wishing and believing and hoping or, whatever. Having faith. I didn't have faith. I actually found my answers, and that's what I told him. And I said, I don't really need the book. I don't need a book. And I said, I can recline in Buddha as well. I got my Buddha here. It doesn't have to be hard and fast religion. I don't have to believe in any particular religion and say it's the only way. See, I've got that sitting in my car. And to me, I said to him, love for me is, they say it's the answer. And it is for me. It's a question. It's not even a question. It actually just is. Love is. And I said to him, I practice love. And I said, if someone hurts me, and I got hurt yesterday because I got judged yesterday, a man who was like the landlord of a friend's house. I'd stayed with this friend for quite a long time when I was going through quite a great deal, but I wasn't paying rent, and he knew that, and he didn't approve at all because if you stay there, you should pay rent. But my life situation was far more complicated than he knew. So he was very quick to judge me. He put up with me whilst I was with her, but when I came to this new place that she was at, he came down with the electricity bill very fast because she'd had her sister there for 10 days, and then I came and stayed a couple of days. And he's concerned about the power consumption. And he said, the power bill's gone up. But it was the way he framed it was like he was dissuading her from having friends staying over. And it's like in a metered type situation in a rental, let's say if there's a separate metering, then those parties would go 50-50 or 75-35 or whatever. If it's not metered or it's coming from the house, the one meter box, then typically they put the estimated electricity price into the rent, which is a far more sensible approach. But rather than that, he's worrying about extra people. Like she might not have anyone stay there for the next 3 or 4 months. And it's her home. And he was very unkind to me, and he told me to get out because he didn't like the fact that I told him I was uncomfortable with the way he was speaking. And talking to my friend, he was really badger. It was bullying in a way. So I sat down and I just thought and he was making me feel like a homeless person was what he did. It was really cruel. And that's what I said to this guy, like I had to really sit and contemplate how I was being projected onto when I'd done nothing, just visiting my friend. And I also had to, it took me a long time to calm down from how unkind he was. And it brought up other things for me where I'd been disrespected in the past. And I was hurt. I cried a lot. Cried a lot that day. It was a very hard day yesterday. And I then this morning, found forgiveness for him. And what I do is send light, which is just love, really. So forgiveness. You have to forgive. And I said to this man, what I typically say is, when you know you don't know, that's the beginning of wisdom. When you don't know what you don't know, that's ignorance. And he's never been homeless, so he wouldn't know. So can I really hold anger around him, even though he wasn't kind, for that ignorance? And really it was coming from fear, as my friend quite rightly stated, not love or fairness. He was saying he was being fair, but he wasn't. he was in a statement of reaction, a state of judgment and a state of reaction. And actually, it was from that I realised that all homelessness is caused by judgment. I went, oh, yeah, of course. Well, of course that's true. You'd have to be in judgment to walk past a person and not help them. You're either judging they're a drug addict, you're judging they've got mental health issues, you're judging they're down and out, you're judging they're lazy, bludger, whatever the propaganda is around homelessness. Those would be the words coming up as to why you don't act. Because when we saw the bushfires, people were rushing, spending millions and millions. We had the warships evacuating. We've got far more homeless than those affected by the fires. It's a national crisis, but it's a silent one. Because majority, 95%, you won't see. They'll be like me. You'll be walking past us on the street. You won't know we haven't got a home. It's only the small percentage, 7%, of that group that are actually on the street. And this guy, David, I met, he sort of reminded me of David and Goliath. He made that comment. I said, yes, the judge called my situation a David and Goliath situation. And he said, he accepted his situation, but he said, I don't want to whitewash it either. So even though he and I had a narrative around, I'd talked about positive spin on, not spin, it was positive. I'd made a decision to positively evaluate my life as a result of homelessness being a teacher to me. So that doesn't mean I'm going out celebrating and kicking up my heels at, liberation, freedom from in homelessness, when you've got no money and you've got no food and you're getting hungry and cold, or you're very uncertain where to next and you don't want to bother people. It's very tricky, believe me. And he said, it's actually really harsh. And he said, whilst I go with the flow and I just accept, he said, clearly I would want a house, but I'm just accepting it. And I said, yeah, that's allowance. And that's very, very wise. You're not fighting against the system. You're not, rallying against it. I said, I'm not either. I said, I don't dislike anyone. I will help. And I said, I won't use the word help. It's more or less coming alongside other homeless people as equals and inspiring or encouraging a voice so they can talk about what's happened. Because when you've gone through or are going through very difficult experiences like homelessness, you need to be able to speak about it, but not with people that are going to judge you or feel they're doing good, but really speaking with people who get it. And I said to him, I want to create the Courtney's Patch Eco Village for women who are on the street. I want to take them off the street, and 50 women and girls. And there's another initiative, which is possible provision of boats, apparently some free boats. So homeless men, for example, could go on a boat, or some homeless women. But for the moment, it would be a pilot. So it's really looking at giving not only shelter, which is a human right, but it's actually a healthy, healing space that I want to create. And it's going to be sustainable, so it meets with the Sustainable Development Goals. It'll be a place that women can possibly even help build, so it might have geodesic domes or earth ships, which are made out of recycled materials. We could have tiny houses there as temporary whilst we're building. We get solar panels on the roofs. We get, water tanks delivered. We create permaculture gardens so we can grow our own food and possibly sell it. But that sort of process will give people, often when you get people around an idea and they're actually engaged in building it, it's good for women to learn to do these things because they've never been taught. And they'll get a sense of pride and ownership in this place. So it'll be their patch. It'll be a safe place. It'll be with women. It'll be, encouraging of communities to get involved in actually assisting with guiding, with bringing this eco-village together. It'll also be building a peace community, so they'll learn inner peace and outer peace. I've come from a clowning background with Patch Adams, so the idea would be to bring in humour, laughter as a form of healing. A bit of juggling is good for the left and the right hemisphere. They can, do some jokes, We can just have fun and learn conflict resolution skills. So if there's any issues that come up in the community, we learn how to use I statements. When you do this, I feel that, and we can resolve it. So we can practice and inquiry, so questioning of negative thoughts and allowing those thoughts to release once we find the truth of the matter. Because a lot of people are unconsciously judging, but they're not sitting and going, well, is it true what I'm really thinking? Is that person really that? How do I feel? How do I react when I believe the thought? Who would they be if I looked at them without that negative thought? And then you turn it to the opposite, the other, and the self. This is the work of Byron Katie. So I'd be teaching that. We do workshops and all sorts of fun things, and to live a more sustainable life. So he was kind of interested in that, and sort of bringing some hope into his space, because he sort of came around his own faith very strongly, and he was a true believer in God, and he quoted out of the Bible to me things that were important to him. And a really, really beautiful man. I really saw that. I really liked him. And we actually became friends. I was there quite a few hours, and we just started to get really relaxed with each other. And, I told him I'm actually a happy person, even though, I said I've had my moments. I wanted it in my life many years ago. When I was in a dispute, it was extremely tough. I said to him, I have been through it, and I had to work it out. But I said I am a positive person by nature. And I told him a bit about clowning overseas, when I clowned with people and no one was unacceptable in my world. And I said, isn't it funny? There I was going to disadvantage people, pardon me, and, really trying to cheer people up when they were down and out themselves. And I said, it was really interesting, David, when I became homeless, not that many people helped. And yet I'd spent years giving of my time and energy and love to others who I thought, and they were in great need. And I noticed that my own friends didn't even contact and find out how I am, and people just dropped away and got busy with their lives. And I was really struck by the fact they didn't get that it's serious poverty, because they're used to taking everything for granted. It's only when it's not there. And that's what he said he'd learned, to appreciate things more deeply. He said even a kind word. He said a smile. And I knew that even as a clown, because people had told me that I'd made their day just by smiling at them. So the little things become very important. Having your health, having enough food. I can be so grateful at times for the food that's been given. I met a lady around Christmas who shared Christmas with me. I met her at the library. She brought all the food for Christmas. She wanted me to feel really happy. So she brought food to me. It was amazing. And champagne. The two of us sat there drinking, and, it was just so kind. She said, I think I've come into your life to bring you joy. And I said, yeah, my father wanted me to have more joy, because I've worked very hard over these years and standing up for the rights of people, but in a loving way is the way I want to do it. I'm not interested in, banging on drums. I'm more interested in awakening others to the truth of this matter, and that we are really each other's family. It's not them and us. Just because a person doesn't have a house doesn't make them less than you. It just means they don't have a house. And the real deal there is people are too scared to involve themselves, because what if I get a problem? So this is all the unquestioned fears. What if they're a problem, they don't leave? What if they steal from me? What if they're violent? What if they turn? All that fear, because they watch a lot of TV and they lost community. They lost their confidence. So really the homelessness in reality is a mirror to the world. It's really teaching people about themselves. Do you walk past? Do you interact? Do you buy a coffee? Do you ignore them? Do you not see them? It's all about you and who you are in relationship to a person who you might deem as disadvantaged or homeless or on welfare, whatever label you want to apply. With that comes lots of stigma, which tends to create that barrier to helping that person. So what David's done is he's living in the forest and living a quiet life. He's not on Centrelink. So he's one who has chosen to be independent. And as he said, he doesn't talk much to people. So it was kind of a miracle the two of us met, as I just happened to walk down a path I'd never walked before. And I met this beautiful, beautiful man. And I said, can I interview you for my radio program? And he said, no, I don't do interviews. I said, that's okay. He goes, he said, I wanted to say to you too that if you want to come and see me, please do, but don't bring other people. And I said, no, I won't. I would love to come and see you. I said, I'm here for another couple of weeks because I don't know where I am after this. But I'd be very happy to come and talk. And we talked about God and life and, love. And he was sharing a lot of his wisdom. It was really, really nice. And I could feel myself just really uplifted, after being in his presence. He was really nice. So I'm going to give him my card next time and tell him to keep in touch. He had a good heart. So what a privilege. And I said that to him. And we both felt the privilege of meeting each other. It was really beautiful. And I'm quite sure it was guided. He would be thinking the same. No mistake that we met. Anyway, I just wanted to share that because every homeless life does matter. And it's my joy to move into this work of advocating for the beautiful homeless and to remind them that we're all equal, to remind them of their gifts and their beauty and that they're having an experience. And for some, it's extremely tough, particularly out in these elements. I mean, this guy, David, just to hark back to David, huge tree fell down in this area that I'm in because I actually saw the tree. And it could have fallen on him. And I just want to say one other thing about David. He knows the animals around him. He's named them. He's been there 7 years. And this little bird flew between he and I, little sparrow. He goes, oh, that's Sam. And I kid you not, he's sound as anything. David's sound. He knows the animals. He's got possum that he comes to see him because the animals you see him as part of the environment. They're not afraid of him. That little bird was flying close to where we were and it was just jumping around tweeting. It knows him. That was really something. I loved it. Gee, it was great. I feel so happy to having met him. Real privilege. So that's my sharing with you. Much love. And remember, homeless lives matter. We're all equal. We're all one. And this is a journey home for all of us to who we really are, to forgiveness, to love, to letting go, to peace, to non-judgment. That's the big one out of this. Judgment is the cause of homelessness. Remember that, because it is. Untruth is what judgment is. And if you ever find yourself looking at someone and making a judgment, and I've done it, don't worry. So we're all liable for it. Just know that you're stepping out of love when you judge. If you say they should be working, they're lazy, you're in judgment. And that's actually creating homelessness. Or if you're saying they're dependent, well, he and I aren't. We're both not on income, so we're not dependent. We're independent. I'm not relying on anyone. Although people give and I only accept when they offer. I never ask. So there's an integrity as well in this space when you are choosing to honour what's true for you or truth. And I consider that to be a virtuous life. And if it means living with not much, I'm quite happy to do that. I actually see it as abundance in terms of virtue. That to me is the real wealth of the nation. Gross national happiness is the real purpose of any formulation of a system. Gross national product or gross domestic product is all about producing products and services. but it's sinking the ecological ship, so it's not working. So maybe from the lived experience of homelessness, we can show others that you can live simply to let others simply live. We don't need all the things we have, and it doesn't bring happiness. So my work, having been a clown, is to remind people that we're here to be happy, and again, that your happy destiny is unavoidable. Thanks for watching and listening. Take care, eh? Bye.